Admiral Elena Vasquez walked through the long white hallway toward the council chamber. Her black military uniform stood out against the bright walls. Each step echoed in the empty corridor. She carried no weapons, but her shoulders were straight and her eyes were calm. Today would change everything for humanity. The Galactic Council had ruled over thousands of worlds for centuries. They decided which species could expand their territory. They controlled trade routes between star systems. They said they brought peace to the galaxy, but Elena knew the truth. They brought fear. The chamber doors opened with a soft hiss. Elena stepped inside and looked up at the massive room. 3 different alien species sat on raised platforms looking down at her like judges. The ceiling was so high she could barely see it. Light came from floating crystals that made everything glow with a cold blue color. The Zephyrians spoke first. Their bodies were made of living crystal that sang when they moved. Human representative. Their voice rang like wind chimes. You know why you are here? Elena nodded. I do. On the second platform, the Kavari swarm rustled their insect wings. Their leader was as big as a horse, with 6 arms and compound eyes that reflected the light. Your species expands too quickly, the Kavari clicked. You take worlds without permission. You make alliances without asking us first. The third platform held something that looked like a floating ball of energy. The ethereals had no solid bodies, just organized light and thought. When they spoke, their words appeared directly in Elena's mind. Humanity is dangerous. Your history shows endless wars. You adapt our technology in ways we never intended. This cannot continue. Elena stood perfectly still. She had expected this. Human colonies had been growing across the galaxy for 50 years. They had made friends with smaller species that the Council ignored. They had built cities on worlds the Council thought were worthless. And yes, they had taken alien technology and made it better. The Zephyrian leader raised one crystalline arm. We offer you a choice, human. Submit to our guidance. Allow us to control your expansion, accept our protection, or face the consequences. What consequences? Elena asked. The Kavari leader's wings buzzed with anger. Military action. Your colonies will be dissolved. Your species will return to your home world and stay there. Elena felt a cold weight in her stomach, but her face showed nothing. She had trained for this moment her entire life. Behind her, calm expression, her mind was working. She thought about the secret messages that had been sent to human worlds. She thought about the ancient protocols that were already being activated. She thought about things the Council did not know existed. How long do we have to decide? Elena asked. You will decide now, the ethereal said inside her mind. Your answer determines whether humanity has a future among the stars. Elena took a deep breath. She thought about her daughter on Mars colony. She thought about the farmers on New Terra who had built a life from nothing. She thought about the researchers on Station Omega who were working to cure diseases that affected dozens of species. All of this would be lost if she submitted. But she also thought about other things, things hidden in deep space, things that had been waiting for centuries, things that the Council had no idea existed. I need to be very clear about something, Elena said. Her voice was steady and calm. Are you threatening to attack human worlds if we don't surrender our freedom? The 3 species looked at each other. The Kavari leader nodded. If necessary, yes. Elena smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Then I respectfully decline your offer. Humanity will not submit. We will defend our sovereignty and our right to exist as free people. The chamber filled with angry sounds. The Zephyrians sang discordant notes. The Kavari buzzed their wings in rage. The ethereal's light grew brighter and more chaotic. You are making a mistake, the ethereal projected. Your small fleet cannot stand against the combined might of the galaxy's great powers. Elena began walking toward the exit. She stopped at the door and turned back to face the council. Her next words would be remembered for generations. "You should know something," she said. "Humanity has been preparing for this day far longer than you realize. You think you know us, but you don't. You think you understand our capabilities, but you're wrong. You believe we are just another young species seeking our place in the galaxy. But that belief will cost you dearly." The council members leaned forward. Something in Elena's voice made them uneasy. "What are you saying?" the Zephyrian asked. Elena's smile became genuine. "I'm saying that you have no idea what you're starting. When this is over, the galaxy will never be the same again." She turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the three species began talking rapidly in their own languages. They were already planning their attack, certain that humanity would fall quickly. Elena walked back down the long hallway. Her steps were still steady, but now there was something different about them. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small communication device. She pressed a single button and spoke 2 words: Protocol Aurora. Across the galaxy, on worlds that most people had never heard of, ancient machines began to wake up. Deep underground, in hidden facilities that had waited for centuries, lights began to turn on. Computer systems that had been sleeping for longer than the Council had existed started running again. On Earth, in a bunker buried beneath the Himalayas, an old man in a military uniform opened his eyes. General Harrison Chen had been waiting his entire life for this moment. His great-grandfather had given him the codes. His father had taught him the protocols. Now it was time to honor the covenant. Elena reached her ship and sent a message to Earth. "The Council has chosen war. Activate all sleeping assets. Wake the Guardians. It's time to show them who humanity really is." As her ship left the Council station, Elena looked out at the stars. The aliens thought they knew human history. They thought Earth was humanity's first and only home world. They thought the current human fleet was all humanity possessed. They were about to learn how wrong they were. In the deepest parts of space, on worlds that appeared dead and empty, something stirred. Ships that had been sleeping for thousands of years began to power up their engines. Weapons that could shatter moons charged their batteries. Warriors, who had been waiting for generations, received their final orders. The greatest military force in galactic history was about to reveal itself. And when it did, every species in the galaxy would understand that humanity was not what they seemed to be. Elena smiled as her ship jumped to hyperspace. The real war was about to begin. Captain Marcus Chen read the emergency message 3 times before he believed it. His ship, the exploration vessel Endeavor, had been mapping distant star systems when the coded transmission arrived. Now he was changing course toward a world called Luna 7, deep in human territory. The message was simple but terrifying. Protocol Aurora activated. Proceed to coordinates immediately. Prepare for heritage activation. Marcus had heard whispers about Protocol Aurora during his years in the academy. Old instructors would sometimes mention it in quiet voices, but they never explained what it meant. Some cadets thought it was just a legend. Marcus was about to learn it was very real. Across human space, similar scenes were playing out. Colony administrators received sealed orders they had never seen before. Military bases opened vaults that had been locked for decades. Civilian populations watched in confusion as their governments began massive evacuation procedures. On New Terra, Governor Sarah Walsh stood in her office looking at a holographic map. Red dots were appearing on worlds she had never heard of. Her aide, a young man named Tom, pointed at the display. "Governor, we're receiving reports from mining stations on dead worlds. They're saying ancient machinery is coming online. Equipment that's been buried for centuries is starting to work." Sarah nodded grimly. Her grandmother had given her a sealed envelope when she took office. Only open this if Protocol Aurora is activated, the old woman had said. Sarah had thought it was family superstition. Now she understood. The envelope contained coordinates, access codes, and a single line of text. Remember who we really are? Meanwhile, alien intelligence services were working frantically to understand what humans were doing. The Kavari swarm had spy networks throughout human space, but their reports made no sense. Commander Zexhai buzzed his wings nervously as he read the latest intelligence. Our agents report massive movement of personnel, but not to military bases. They're going to empty worlds. Worlds our surveys showed had no valuable resources. His superior, Admiral Kriltanto, studied the reports. What do humans know about these worlds that we don't? The question would haunt alien leadership for weeks to come. Captain Marcus arrived at Luna 7 after 3 days of hard travel. The world looked exactly like the surveys said, rocky, airless, and completely dead. No atmosphere, no water, no signs of life. Just another useless ball of rock floating in space. But as Marcus brought his ship into orbit, his sensors detected something impossible. There were structures beneath the surface, massive structures, and they were generating power. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "I'm receiving a signal from the planet. It's using old human military codes." "Put it through," Marcus ordered. A voice came through the speakers, clear and strong despite coming from a supposedly dead world. "Captain Chen, this is Luna Base 7. Welcome home. Please proceed to landing coordinates Alpha 77. Your genetic signature has, been confirmed. You are cleared for heritage activation." Marcus felt his hands shake as he piloted his ship toward the surface. The landing coordinates led him to what looked like a simple crater. But as his ship descended, metal doors opened in the crater floor, revealing a massive underground hangar. The hangar was bigger than anything Marcus had ever seen. It could hold 100 ships the size of his. Ancient lighting systems activated as he landed, showing him technology that was clearly human, but far more advanced than anything in the current fleet. A woman in an old-style military uniform met him at the airlock. She was middle-aged, with gray hair and serious eyes. "Captain Chen, I am Commander Lisa Torres. I've been waiting for you." "Waiting for me?" Marcus asked. "How did you know I was coming?" Commander Torres smiled. "Your great-grandfather left very specific instructions. The Chen family has been guardians of this facility for 8 generations. Today, you inherit that responsibility." She led him through corridors filled with advanced technology. Computer screens showed star charts of the galaxy, but they included worlds that current maps didn't show. Weapons lockers contained equipment that looked centuries ahead of current human military gear. "What is this place?" Marcus asked. "This is one of 53 heritage sites scattered across the galaxy," Torres explained. "Each one contains part of humanity's true history. Each one has been maintained by families like yours, waiting for the day when the old fleet would be needed again." They reached a massive chamber with a transparent aluminum wall. Beyond the wall, Marcus saw something that made him gasp. A warship floated in a sealed dock surrounded by maintenance robots. The ship was enormous, at least 10 times larger than any current human vessel. Its hull was black as space, covered with weapon systems he didn't recognize. "That is the Indomitable," Torres said quietly. "Flagship of the 3rd Heritage Fleet. She fought in the expansion wars 3,000 years ago. When humanity retreated to Earth, she and ships like her were hidden away, waiting for the day when they would be needed again." Marcus stared at the ship. 3,000 years? But humanity only reached space 200 years ago. Torres shook her head. "That's what the galaxy believes. That's what we wanted them to believe. The truth is, humanity had an interstellar empire once. We built cities on 1,000 worlds. We had technology that could reshape matter at the atomic level. We were the most powerful force in the galaxy. What happened? Marcus asked. We met something we couldn't defeat, Torres said simply. Something that forced us to make a choice, rule through fear and become monsters or retreat and wait for a better time. Our ancestors chose to retreat. They destroyed most of their empire rather than let it fall into the wrong hands. They went back to Earth and started over, but they never forgot. Torres activated a control panel and the ship began to power up. Lights appeared along its hull like stars being born. Every human colony, every expansion, every alliance we've made in the last 200 years has been guided by ancient protocols, Torres continued. We've been rebuilding slowly, carefully, making sure we were ready for the day when the galaxy would force us to reveal our true strength. Marcus watched in amazement as more ships appeared in the chamber. Smaller vessels, support craft, and weapons platforms that defied everything he thought he knew about physics. How many ships are there? He asked. Across all 53 sites, nearly 800 combat vessels plus support craft, Torres replied. Each one maintained in perfect condition, each one more advanced than anything the current galactic powers possess. Similar scenes were happening across human space. On worlds that surveys had dismissed as worthless, ancient fleets were awakening. Weapons that could crack planets were charging their power cores. Ships that had fought battles before the current galactic powers existed were preparing for war once more. And in the deepest parts of space, on a world that didn't appear on any star chart, the greatest secret of all was stirring. The Prometheus, Unbound, flagship of the ancient human empire, felt the call of its descendants and began to wake from its 3,000-year sleep. The galaxy thought it was about to crush a young, weak species. Instead, it was about to face the return of the greatest military force in galactic history. Humanity was coming home. Commander Sarah O'Brien had been exploring dead worlds for 15 years, but she had never seen anything like this. The canyon on Kepler 442c stretched for hundreds of kilometers across the planet's surface. From orbit, it looked natural, just another scar left by ancient geological activity. But the heritage protocols had sent her here for a reason. Sarah led her team down into the canyon using rappelling equipment. The walls were smooth black rock that seemed to absorb light. As they descended deeper, her scanner began picking up strange readings. Commander, her technical specialist, Corporal Davis, called out, I'm getting massive energy signatures below us. And these walls, they're not natural rock. It's some kind of manufactured material. Sarah stopped her descent and examined the wall more closely. What she had thought was natural stone was actually a perfectly smooth metal surface designed to look like rock. The camouflage was so good that only close inspection revealed the truth. How deep does this go? She asked. Davis checked his scanner. At least 2 kilometers straight down. But, Commander, the energy signature suggests something much larger than a simple cave system. Sarah activated her emergency genetic scanner, a device that had been included in the heritage protocols but never explained. She pressed it against the wall and waited. A soft blue light appeared, running along what looked like solid rock. Suddenly, a section of the wall began to move. The team stepped back as a massive door opened in the canyon wall. Beyond it lay a corridor filled with soft white light. The air that flowed out was warm and breathable, carrying the faint scent of ozone and metal. Someone's been maintaining this place, Sarah whispered. They walked into the corridor, their footsteps echoing. In the vast space, the walls were covered with displays showing star charts, technical specifications, and data in languages that looked almost human, but far more advanced. The corridor led to a balcony overlooking something that made Sarah's breath catch in her throat. Below them stretched a chamber so large she couldn't see the far end, and floating in that chamber, held in place by gravitational fields she didn't understand, was a warship. The ship was enormous, nearly 30 kilometers from bow to stern. Its hull was dark gray metal covered with weapon systems that looked nothing like current human technology. The design was elegant and deadly, like a sword made of starlight and shadow. "My God," Davis breathed. "What is that thing?" a voice answered from behind them. "That is the Indomitable, pride of the Third Heritage Fleet, and you are looking at humanity's true military heritage." Sarah spun around to see an elderly man in an ancient military uniform. He was tall and thin, with white hair and eyes that seemed much older than his face. On his shoulder was an insignia she didn't recognize, a star surrounded by wings. "I am Admiral James Morrison," the man said. "I've been waiting here for 43 years for someone with the right genetic codes to arrive. Your great-grandmother served on this ship during the expansion wars." "The what wars?" Sarah asked. "I've never heard of any expansion wars." Admiral Morrison smiled sadly. "Of course you haven't. That history was buried when humanity retreated to Earth. Come, let me show you what your people once were." He led them to a control room overlooking the massive ship. Banks of computers lined the walls, displaying information in holographic projections. Sarah saw star charts showing human colonies on worlds she had never heard of, battle reports from conflicts that supposedly never happened, technical specifications for weapons that could destroy entire star systems. 3,000 years ago, humanity controlled over 800 worlds, Morrison explained. We had technology that made us the dominant force in the galaxy. Our ships could travel between stars in days instead of weeks. Our weapons could reshape matter at the quantum level. Our cities floated in space like jewels among the stars. "What happened to all of it?" Sarah asked. Morrison's expression grew dark. "We encountered something we called the Devourers. They came from beyond the galactic rim, beings of pure hunger that consumed entire civilizations. We fought them for 200 years. We won, but the cost was terrible." He activated a holographic display showing the aftermath of ancient battles. Dead worlds, shattered fleets, and the remains of civilizations that had been completely consumed. "The war changed us," Morrison continued. "We became as ruthless as our enemies. We developed weapons that could sterilize entire star systems. We created artificial intelligences that viewed all non-human life as potential threats. We were winning, but we were becoming monsters." Sarah watched the display in horror. "So you stopped?" "Our leaders made a choice that saved the galaxy," Morrison said. "They ordered the Great Retreat. Most of our technology was destroyed. Our colonies were abandoned. Our fleets were hidden in places like this. Humanity returned to Earth and pretended to be a young species just reaching for the stars." "But why keep the ships?" Sarah asked. Morrison gestured toward the Indomitable. "Because our leaders knew that someday the galaxy might force us to reveal our true strength again. They couldn't predict when or why, but they knew it would happen. So they left us guardians, caretakers who would maintain the old fleet until the day it was needed." The ship below them was beginning to show signs of life. Lights appeared along its hull in complex patterns. The gravitational fields holding it in place began to shift, preparing to release it. "The heritage protocols have been activated," Morrison said. "Across the galaxy, 53 ships like this one are awakening. The ancient fleet is preparing for war once more." Sarah stared at the massive vessel. "Can it really fight modern ships?" Morrison laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Modern ships? Commander, this vessel could destroy the entire Galactic Council fleet single-handedly. Its weapons operate on principles that current galactic science doesn't even understand. Its defenses could withstand the combined firepower of 1,000 enemy vessels, and its artificial intelligence has been studying galactic military doctrine for 3,000 years preparing for this moment." As if responding to his words, the ship's communication systems activated. A voice filled the chamber, not mechanical, but clearly artificial. It spoke in perfect modern human language, but with an accent Sarah didn't recognize. Admiral Morrison, this is Captain Alexandra, ship's artificial intelligence. All systems are operational. Crew quarters are prepared for incoming personnel. Weapon systems are charging to full capacity. I am ready to serve humanity once more. Morrison turned to Sarah. Commander, I'm too old to command a ship in battle. The protocols specify that command should pass to the most qualified active officer present. That would be you. Sarah felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders. I don't know how to command something like this. The ship will teach you, Morrison said. Its AI contains the memories and experience of every captain who ever commanded her. You won't be alone. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Ancient ships were awakening from their long sleep. Weapons that could shatter planets were powering up. Defense systems that operated beyond current understanding of physics were coming online. On a dead world in the Outer Rim, the Prometheus, Unbound, opened its eyes for the first time in 3 millennia. The flagship of the ancient human empire was larger than most space stations, carrying enough firepower to level entire star systems. Its AI had been dreaming for thousands of years, and now it was time to wake up. The Galactic Council's spy networks were detecting massive energy signatures from dozens of supposedly empty worlds. Their analysis teams worked frantically to understand what was happening, but their instruments couldn't identify the technology they were seeing. Admiral Krill Tanto of the Kavari Swarm studied the latest reports with growing unease. These energy signatures are impossible. Nothing in our databases matches this technology. His intelligence chief buzzed nervously. Admiral, what if humanity has allies we don't know about? What if they've been hiding advanced technology from us? Krill Tanto's compound eyes reflected his worry. That would change everything. We're assembling our forces to fight a primitive species. If they have access to unknown technology, he couldn't finish the thought. The largest military force in galactic history was gathering to crush humanity. But what if humanity was not what they appeared to be? In the hidden chambers beneath Kepler 442c, Sarah O'Brien took her first steps aboard the Indomitable. The ship welcomed her like a living thing, its corridors brightening as she passed. She was about to become captain of the most powerful warship in galactic history. The ancient fleet was awakening, and when it revealed itself, the galaxy would learn that humanity had been holding back for 3,000 years. The real war was about to begin. The Galactic Armada arrived at Proxima Gate like a moving constellation. 3,000 ships from dozens of worlds spread across space in the largest military formation in galactic history. Admiral Krill Tanto of the Kavari Swarm commanded the fleet from his flagship, the Eternal Victory. Around him, the combined forces of the galaxy's greatest powers prepared for what they thought would be a quick victory. Long-range sensors show human defensive positions around the gate, reported his sensor officer. I count approximately 300 vessels. Krill Tanto buzzed his wings in satisfaction. 10-to-1 odds in their favor. The humans had positioned themselves well, using the gravitational effects of the gate to limit approach routes, but numbers would tell in the end. What class of vessels are they deploying? He asked. The sensor officer paused, studying his displays with a confused expression. Sir, I'm having trouble identifying them. The signatures don't match anything in our databases. They appear to be much larger than reported human vessels, but the configurations are unusual. Admiral Krill Tanto moved to the main display screen. What he saw made his confidence waver for the first time since the campaign began. The human ships were arranged in perfect formation around Proxima Gate, but they looked nothing like the vessels in intelligence reports. These ships were enormous. The smallest was larger than his flagship. They had sleek, predatory lines that seemed to cut through space itself. Their hulls were dark as the void between stars, but energy patterns flickered across their surfaces, like living lightning. Get me a communication channel with the human fleet, he ordered. The main screen shifted to show a woman in an unfamiliar military uniform. She sat in a command chair that seemed to be carved from a single piece of black crystal. Behind her, holographic displays showed tactical information in languages the translation systems couldn't decode. "I am Admiral Elena Vasquez, commanding the Human Defensive Fleet," she said. Her voice was calm, almost conversational. "Admiral Krill Tanto, I presume? Surrender now, and your people will be treated according to galactic conventions," Krill Tanto replied. "You are vastly outnumbered. This battle has only one possible outcome." Elena smiled, and something in that smile made Krill Tanto's insect instincts scream warnings. "You're right about one thing, Admiral. This battle does have only one possible outcome. But I don't think you understand what that outcome is." She gestured toward the view screen behind her. "You see, you've made a fundamental error in your calculations. You think you're fighting the same humanity that joined galactic civilization 50 years ago? You think you know our capabilities based on our current fleet? You're wrong about both of those things." "Explain yourself," Krill Tanto demanded. "You demanded to know humanity's true strength," Elena said. "Today, you're going to get exactly what you asked for. Computer, open a channel to all ships in the Armada." Elena's image appeared on every screen in the galactic fleet. 3,000. Ships full of alien warriors watched as she delivered her message. "My name is Admiral Elena Vasquez of the Human Heritage Fleet. You came here expecting to fight a young species with primitive technology. Instead, you're facing the descendants of the greatest military force this galaxy has ever known. Our ancestors built an empire that spanned 1,000 worlds. When they retreated, they didn't disappear. They went to sleep. Today, they wake up." She paused, letting her words sink in. "The ships you see before you are 3,000 years old. They fought in wars you've never heard of against enemies that could devour entire star systems. They were hidden away, maintained and guarded by generations of caretakers, waiting for the day when humanity would need them again." On the bridge of the Eternal Victory, Krill Tanto's sensor officer was frantically scanning the human ships. "Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy buildups across the human fleet. Their power signatures they're impossible. Nothing should be able to generate that much energy." Elena's voice continued across all channels. "You wanted war. You chose to threaten innocent human colonies because you feared our potential. Today you're going to understand exactly what you were afraid of." She raised her hand, and across. The human fleet, weapon systems that had slept for millennia, came online. The space around Proxima Gate began to glow with energies that galactic science couldn't explain. "All human vessels," Elena said. "You are authorized to engage. Show them who we really are." The battle began not with the traditional exchange of long-range missiles, but with weapons that redefined the meaning of warfare. The human ships opened fire with coherent energy beams that passed through galactic shields like they weren't there. Where the beams struck enemy vessels, matter simply ceased to exist. The Indomitable, commanded by Sarah O'Brien, led the human left flank. Its main weapon systems fired once, and 3 Zephyrian cruisers vanished in bursts of light. The beam hadn't destroyed them. It had converted their matter directly into energy. "Impossible!" Krill Tanto shouted. "Our shield should stop any energy weapon." "Admiral," his science officer reported in a shaking voice, "they're not using energy weapons, as we understand them. They're manipulating matter at the quantum level. Our shields are designed to deflect particles and energy. These weapons are rewriting the fundamental structure of reality." The galactic fleet tried to respond with concentrated fire on the nearest human vessel, the destroyer Swift Justice. 100 ships focused their weapons on the small craft, enough firepower to vaporize a moon. The destroyer's shields absorbed every shot without showing the slightest strain. The energy was simply redirected harmlessly into space, as if the laws of physics bent around the human vessel. "How are their shields so strong?" Krill Tanto demanded. Before anyone could answer, the Swift Justice fired back. a single pulse from. Its main weapon struck the ethereal dreadnought Cosmic Harmony. The massive ship, pride of the ethereal fleet, folded in on itself and disappeared. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human weapons found their targets with impossible accuracy. Galactic ships that had taken direct hits discovered their damage control systems failing as human technology interfered with their most basic functions. The Prometheus Unbound entered the battle like a force of nature. The ancient flagship was larger than some asteroids, bristling with weapon systems that operated on principles the galaxy had never seen. When it fired its main battery, an entire section of the galactic fleet simply ceased to exist. Admiral Elena Vasquez watched the battle unfold from her command chair. The ancient ships fought with the accumulated experience of 3,000 years. Their artificial intelligences predicted enemy movements before the aliens made them. Their weapons adapted to new threats in real time. Their defenses seemed to violate the fundamental laws of physics. "Admiral Kriltanto," Elena said, opening a communication channel again. "You have two choices. Order your fleet to surrender or watch them all die. My ships are barely using a fraction of their capabilities." On the bridge of the Eternal Victory, panic was setting in. Nearly a quarter of the galactic fleet had been destroyed in the first hour of battle, while the human ships showed no damage at all. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from over 200 ships. They're requesting permission to withdraw." Kriltanto stared at the tactical display. His overwhelming numerical advantage was melting away. Ships that had been the pride of their respective fleets were being destroyed by weapons they couldn't understand, couldn't defend against, and couldn't fight back against. "The Zephyrian and Ethereal commanders are requesting an emergency conference," his aide reported. "They want to discuss terms." For the first time in galactic history, the combined fleets of the galaxy's great powers were being defeated by a force they had underestimated. The humans hadn't just hidden their true strength, they had hidden the fact that they were the inheritors of technology that made the current galactic powers look like children playing with toys. Elena Vasquez had been right. The battle had only one possible outcome. But it wasn't the outcome the galaxy had expected. The ancient human fleet continued its methodical destruction of the galactic armada, demonstrating that humanity's friendship had always been a gift, not a weakness. Today, the galaxy was learning the price of rejecting that gift. The war was ending before it had truly begun. The silence in the Galactic Council chamber was deafening. Admiral Kriltanto stood before the three great powers, his insect wings drooping with defeat. Around him, the crystalline Zephyrians sang mournful notes while the ethereal leadership pulsed with dim, defeated light. "Report," the Zephyrian Council leader commanded, though everyone already knew what had happened. "Total defeat," Kriltanto said simply. "Of 3,000 ships, fewer than 800 survived. The human fleet suffered 0 casualties. We have no effective weapons against their technology. We have no defenses against their attacks. Continuing the war would be genocide, our genocide." The ethereal representative projected thoughts of disbelief. "How is this possible? Our intelligence said humanity was a young species with primitive technology." "Our intelligence was wrong," Kriltanto replied. "Humanity is not what they appear to be. They are the descendants of an ancient empire that once ruled most of the galaxy. The ships they used against us are 3,000 years old, and they represent technology so far beyond our understanding that we might as well be fighting gods." The chamber fell silent again. For centuries, these three powers had controlled galactic civilization. They had decided which species could expand and which must submit. Now, in a single day, they had been shown that they were not the strongest force in the galaxy. They weren't even close. "What do the humans want?" the Zephyrian asked. "That's the strangest part," Kriltanto said. "They want to talk." A day later, the same council chamber hosted a very different kind of meeting. Admiral Elena Vasquez entered the room. But this time she was not alone. She was accompanied by representatives from dozens of species that the Council had either ignored or oppressed. The smaller powers of the galaxy had finally found someone willing to stand up to the old order. Elena took her place in the center of the chamber, but she did not look up at the raised platforms where the Council members sat. Instead, she gestured, and holographic displays filled the air around her. "Let me tell you a story," Elena began. 3,000 years ago, humanity controlled 800 worlds. We had technology that could reshape matter, weapons that could crack planets, and ships that could travel between stars in days. We were the dominant force in the galaxy. The displays showed images of ancient human cities floating in space, vast fleets of ships, unlike anything the galaxy had seen, and worlds transformed into gardens by advanced terraforming technology. But power corrupted us, Elena continued. We became aggressive, territorial, and ruthless. When we encountered a threat called the Devourers, beings that consumed entire civilizations, we fought them with everything we had. We won. But the war changed us. We became as monstrous as our enemies. The images shifted to show the aftermath of ancient battles, dead worlds, shattered fleets, and the remains of civilizations caught in the crossfire. Our leaders faced a choice, Elena said. They could use their power to rule the galaxy through fear, or they could step back and give other species a chance to develop. They chose to retreat. Most of our technology was destroyed. Our colonies were abandoned. Our fleets were hidden. Humanity returned to Earth and pretended to be a young species just reaching for the stars. The Zephyrian Council leader's crystalline form rang with confusion. "Why would you give up such power?" Elena smiled. "Because true strength isn't about domination. It's about knowing when to use your power and when to hold back. Our ancestors believed that the galaxy would be better if many species shared leadership, rather than one species ruling over all others." She gestured again, and the displays showed the current state of galactic civilization, the Council's rigid hierarchy, the oppressed smaller species, and the growing tensions that had led to the current crisis. "For 50 years we watched and waited," Elena said. "We hoped that the species who emerged as galactic leaders would be wise and just. Instead, we found the same old pattern, the strong oppressing the weak, expansion controlled by fear instead of cooperation, and smaller species denied their rights." The ethereal representative pulsed with defensive energy. "We brought order to the galaxy. We prevented wars." "You prevented growth," Elena replied. "You stifled innovation. You decided which species deserved freedom and which must submit. You became exactly what we refused to become, rulers through fear." Elena turned to address the entire chamber. "The old order is finished. The galaxy has seen that the Council's power was built on the assumption that no one could challenge you. That assumption was wrong." "What do you want?" the Kavari representative buzzed angrily. "A new system," Elena said. "True cooperation between species. Shared leadership based on merit, not force. Protection for smaller civilizations instead of exploitation. And most importantly, the understanding that no single species, including humanity, should have the power to control the destiny of others." She gestured one more time, and the displays showed a new model of galactic government, a confederation where each species had representation based on their contribution to galactic civilization, not their military power. "We're offering you a choice," Elena said. "Work with us to build something better, or face the consequences of your actions. But understand this. We will never again allow anyone to threaten human colonies, and we will never again hide our true capabilities." The Council members looked at each other with what could only be described as desperate confusion. Their entire worldview had been shattered in a single day. "And if we refuse?" the Zephyrian asked. Elena's expression hardened. Then you'll discover why our ancestors chose to retreat rather than rule. The fleet you faced at Proxima Gate was a small fraction of our total forces. We have ships that could sterilize entire star systems, weapons that could reshape the galactic core, and technology that could make your civilizations disappear as if they never existed. She paused, letting the threat sink in. But we don't want to use that power. We want to build a galaxy where it's never necessary. Over the following weeks, the new galactic order took shape. The old council was dissolved and replaced with a confederation where hundreds of species had representation. Humanity took a leading role, but not a controlling one. Advanced human technology was shared freely, but with strict safeguards to prevent it from being used for conquest. The ancient human fleet returned to its hidden bases, but everyone in the galaxy knew it existed. The knowledge that humanity could end any conflict whenever they chose created a new kind of peace. Not the peace of fear, but the peace of mutual respect. Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the Prometheus Unbound, looking out at a galaxy that had been transformed. Human colonies no longer lived in fear of alien oppression. Smaller species that had been denied the right to expand were building new worlds. Trade flowed freely between civilizations that had once been enemies. Admiral, her aide approached, with a message tablet. We're receiving reports from the heritage sites. All ancient fleets are secure and ready for deployment if needed. Also, we've made contact with the lost colonies, the human settlements that were abandoned during the Great Retreat. They want to rejoin galactic civilization. Elena nodded. The galaxy is about to get much more interesting. How many lost colonies have we found? 47 so far, Admiral. Some of them have developed in very different directions. There are entire human subspecies that evolved in isolation for 3,000 years. Elena smiled. Humanity's story was far from over. The ancient fleets had awakened, not just to defend current human interests, but to begin a new chapter in galactic history. Behind her, the Prometheus Unbound maintained its vigil. The greatest warship in galactic history served as a reminder that humanity had chosen cooperation over conquest, but would never again allow others to make that choice for them. The galaxy would never be the same. For the first time in millennia, it had hope for something better than endless cycles of dominance and submission. Humanity had revealed their ancient strength not to rule, but to protect the dream of what galactic civilization could become. The age of empires was ending. The age of cooperation had begun, and in the deepest vaults of the heritage sites, even older secrets waited. Ships and technologies that even the ancient fleet considered dangerous. Weapons that could reshape reality itself. Elena hoped they would never be needed, but she knew they were there, because sometimes peace could only be maintained by those strong enough to wage war but wise enough to choose a different path. The galaxy was safe, and humanity would make sure it stayed that way.